We learned how to use the bowl, everybody.
That's an important part of worship team meeting this week. Good morning. Welcome both in the sanctuary and online to the Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of St. Petersburg on the unceded lands of the Tocobaga and Seminole Native Americans. My name is John Motter. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I'm excited to bring you today's worship service, making every voice count, with today's worship associate, Alison Lonkey.
Hello. Thank you, John. If you want a church where love is love, Black Lives Matter, we can have discussions respectfully and calmly and still love each other even when our opinions are different, you may have found your church home. I do want to say we welcome the creative energy that children bring. We will have a dismissal for kids to join the religious education classes, but if you hear some noise and see some running, let's hold that with love, and then we'll have quiet time a little bit later.
A couple of announcements. If you look at the very back page of the order of service, next Sunday there's a town hall. It is not at 11:45 p.m. Don't show up then. You can show up though at 11:45 a.m. and we'd be glad to have you there. Second is a follow-up announcement related to last week's services on covenants. If you're interested in joining a group, or even better, if you're interested in starting a new covenant group, please check with Reverend Ben. He's got the list and can direct you to those that still have openings. And I think you'd find the connections that you make there really very rewarding. So I encourage people to do that.
Please read the rest of your announcements in your order of service, in our weekly newsletter, or on the TV in Gilmore during coffee hour.
As Unitarian Universalists, we're a people of diverse beliefs, but we share a common faith, that every person is worthy of love, that what we do in this world matters, and that we are connected to one another and to the earth. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your journey, you are welcome here. Allow me to give a special welcome to any newcomers. If you are new to UU St. Pete, or even relatively new, can you give us a wave? Welcome, lots of new hands. If you'd like, you can please briefly introduce yourself. Alison will bring the microphone to you so those on YouTube can hear what you have to say. You're under absolutely no obligation. I know that terrifies some people, but if you're willing, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, good morning. My name's Kristen Lehman. I'm here with my husband, Scott. We live in St. Petersburg and just came after a particularly hard week to check this out.
Great, welcome.
Good morning. My name is Bob Johnson. I go to All Souls Church in Washington, D.C., and for 10 years I worked for the Joseph Priestley District, organizing new UU congregations.
Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Diana Shue. I've actually been a member of Unitarian Universalist Association since 1996, I think, in Atlanta and in Gainesville. And I've just recently moved back to St. Petersburg, which is my hometown.
Oh, welcome.
Going once?
Oh, up here.
Thank you, everyone.
I'm Randall, and this is India. We're from Brevard, North Carolina. We saw some of our people, so we're just happy to be here for the weekend.
We have a little contingent of Brevard, North Carolinians here to this day. And I used to live about four houses down behind the All Souls Church in D.C. way back in the day. And I'm killing time for her to get back up into the pulpit.
Okay, hello. Thank you all for sharing, and thank you all for silencing your cell phones. Regarding masks, you can wear one as you're willing and comfortable. At this time, we will send our children and teenagers to their classes in Conway Hall. The nursery is also open for young children and infants. As a reminder, we do lock the doors to Conway now for the safety of our kids. And as a safety precaution, let us all sing together, "Go Now in Peace." So now normally is the time that we stand to greet our neighbors. And it's clear that we all really, really love and enjoy that time. So much so that it can be really, really difficult to move forward with the service because we're all so excited. So today we are going to try something new. We're all going to stay seated and say a quick hello, namaste, peace be with you, I'm glad you're here, whatever floats your big blue boat. There will be additional time to socialize after the service during coffee hour, I promise. So, all right, so we're gonna stay seated, 30 seconds, go.
So,
Man, we were seating and y'all are still like raising the roof.
yeah, that gives the newcomers an idea of what it's like on a regular day when we stand up and move around. So now please rise as you are willing and able for our first hymn. Love will guide you. It's number 131 in the gray hymnals. And please remain standing after the song for our chalice lighting.
Love will guide us, peace will guide us, hope inside us, lead the way on the road from green to living. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from in you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has dried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from green to living. Love will guide us.
The flaming chalice is a reminder that we choose to focus here together for this time today, and that we believe such time is sacred. When Vi Chao lights her chalice, I invite you to say our covenant out loud. The words can be found within your programs and online. Feel free to follow along with the two hand movements, hand to heart, and then hands reaching out like you're serving. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
You may be seated. We now come to the time in our worship service for joys, sorrows, and concerns. Those of you on YouTube Live are not in this room, but your presence is still felt. Please type your joys and sorrows into the text chat. If you have a joy, sorrow, or concern to submit during the week, you can write to Reverend Ben at minister@uustpete.org.
We've got a couple. A joy from Reverend Ben. Reverend Wes Stevens, the former minister here at UU St. Pete, celebrated his 93rd birthday yesterday. He lives in Weeki-Wachi, along with his wife, Barbara, who was the former director of religious education. So very happy birthday to you, Wes. A concern from Diane Dwyer. My sister-in-law, Katie, who is undergoing chemo for breast cancer, has had her diagnosis changed to stage 4 due to metastasis to her liver. And we don't have a card, but I do want to give an update on Dave Cole. Karen did get Dave moved. He's at the Masonic House, which is right down by where they live. It's within walking distance. So hold him in your thoughts. The surgery went okay. He's going through rehab, and they're not quite sure, hoping to get as much function back as possible, but they're just waiting to see, and only time will tell. So keep them in your thoughts.
Thank you, Krisha, for placing a stone in the water for all of these submissions. And if you have any additional concerns that you want to share throughout the week, please, you're welcome to bring those up. We're going to place a final stone for joys and concerns that remain in our hearts, perhaps too tender to be spoken out loud. Thank you. So it is now time for our responsive reading. The words can be found in your order of service. May our hearts not become calloused by the never-ending incidences of oppression and hatred that so many face each day. Rather, may we keep our hearts open to the positive efforts of so many people causing good trouble in the world.
May we have the strength to demand and gain the right for all people to have a safe place to sleep, health care to keep them strong, and the knowledge that their lives matter. The struggle is taking longer than it should, but we will get there if we continue to strive for basic human rights. May all of us find a comforting and compassionate presence in the warmth of fellowship and community. The mystery is that we are connected, even when we feel apart. Let us rejoice in our beloved community that makes of the many one. So may it be. Let's take a minute of silence together. Thank you, John and James. The worship team uses the Soul Matters themes in planning the services here at UU St. Pete. And as a covenant group facilitator, I use the Soul Matters small group pamphlet in planning for our meetings. I found this month's topic introduction to be very on point. The opening poem was written by Jan Richardson, and the accompanying text are the words of Reverend Scott Taylor.
You hardly knew how hungry you were to be gathered in, to receive the welcome that invited you to enter entirely. You began to breathe again. You learned to sing. But the deal with this blessing is that it will not leave you alone, will not let you linger. This blessing will ask you to leave, not because has tired of you, but because it desires for you to become the sanctuary that you have found.
Jan Richardson begins with hunger, and so do we. Just saying the word inclusion conjures it up. The primal hunger to belong, the longing to be let in. No one likes to stand outside the circle. No one likes leaning against the locked door, listening to everyone else laughing inside. From the time we are little, inclusion and belonging is the thing that we seek. It's the hoped-for Holy Grail, the promised resting place.
But Richardson will have none of that. To belong is only the beginning. That's what she wants us to know. 1 minute she's wrapping us up in comforting words about settling in and allowing ourselves to finally breathe. The next, she's shaking us awake and telling us to get up and go. That shaking should tell us something. Or to put it another way, hers is not a gentle invitation. It's not some kind of sweet reminder to think of others. It's a warning. Beware of the kind of belonging that only wants to bless you.
Deep down, we know this. The hard part is to remember it. To use Richardson's language, if we find ourselves being invited to linger rather than leave, alarm bells should go off. We need to be wary of those who welcome us with a members-only card and a soft touch. They may have let us in, but soon they will enlist us into the work of keeping others out. There will likely even be a part of us that wants to keep others out. After all, closed circles don't just set us apart, they also sit us above.
But they also keep us small. Maybe this is why Richardson's blessing is so intent on not leaving us alone. It knows that we only grow when the circle does. Circles that keep others out also keep the air out. No one inside a closed circle truly sings. They only suffocate slowly. It's all one big reminder that the true blessing of inclusion is not that you get to come inside the circle. It's that you get to participate in expanding it. As the circle grows, so do we. Before I continue, I want to take a moment of personal reflection. You can choose to close your eyes during this time or leave them open. I'm going to ask all of you to take a deep breath in, deep breath out. Again, breath in, breath out. I want us to imagine ourselves when we were small. We were small, the world was big. We would try, we would fail, we would learn, we would triumph and hope a loved one was watching. There were times where we were alone. There were times where we felt alone. Sometimes we felt alone the most when the people we cared about were right nearby. Regardless of our upbringing, there is a child in us who was once afraid that their mother would leave the room and not come back, or that their sibling hated them because they wouldn't let you tag along, or that a teacher's harsh words meant a lifetime of failure, or a father saying, "We'll play later," would just be a later that would never come. We've all felt alone and unwanted at some point. Let's take a moment to feel that young person inside of us and let's take a moment to feel that pain. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now let's take that part of us and let's hold that child with love. Help make sure that that child knows that they are loved. Help make sure that that child knows they matter. Say to that child, you matter. Everyone out loud, you matter. Say to yourself, I matter. Out loud, I matter. Let's speak to all of us here. We matter. Now you. And all together, let's say, you are not alone. You are not alone. If you closed your eyes, I encourage you to open them. And again, let's say together, you are not alone. You are not alone. At some point in our lives, we were all vulnerable. Before we learned, we didn't know. Before we grew, we were small. As many of you know, I have a 4-year-old. She doesn't understand most everything, and it's precious. Things are simple and fun and creative and hard and overwhelming. What's little to me is big to her. Big and exciting or scary. She doesn't understand why I'd prefer for her to sit in a pew than running down the aisles or climbing on stage. She doesn't understand all this big, crazy nonsense that's being blasted on the news every day. She doesn't understand it, but she still matters. Her voice still matters. Her perspective still matters. Do you all agree with that? Yes. She sees things in a way that I will never be able to. And despite how much she has to learn about the world, her voice still matters. Let's take this a step further. How about teenagers? Do their voices matter? Yes. I don't know, a lot of teenagers, they love offensive jokes because they've never experienced those traumas. The things that are offensive, they have no idea. Do teenagers who skip out of school and make crude jokes and have zero concept that their actions have consequences, do their voices still matter? Yes. When we look back at ourselves as teenagers, we were young and stupid, but we wanted to matter. We wanted to be heard. We saw things that the people around us didn't see, and we saw things differently. We wanted to be loved, and we wanted to be included. So I ask again, do teenagers' voices matter? Yes. Thank you guys for participating so well. All right, but I'm going to take this one step further. When I was a young and sheltered adult, I believed that I earned all my success in school, sports, college, and jobs solely through my own merit and hard work. I believed that anyone who worked as hard as I did would be successful, and anyone who was lazier got exactly what they deserved. I believed that. I lived in an ideal world full of shoulds and theoreticallys and here's the logic and ignorance, without understanding how complicated and unjust and how downright awful some people can be to each other. I didn't understand how widespread that awfulness was and how lucky I was for my socioeconomic status, my house, dog, yard, picket fence, and loving parents. I didn't understand how much easier I had it than my lazy peers, who in reality were juggling God knows what else. I didn't understand how many doors were opened for me because I was a pretty young blonde. I spoke eloquently, and my father had a shiny job. I thought that I was smarter and better and morally superior than everyone else who didn't have their act together as well as I did. I ask again, did my voice matter? I was going to say, you didn't have to answer. But I really want you to think about where you stand with your values. Whose voice matters? What line are you going to cherry pick for whose voice you're willing to hear at the table and who's not? Where is your cherry picking? How are you choosing and why? What are your values? Whose voice matters? I'm going to end my portion of the service on this. Despite the ignorance of my 20-something self, despite my own self-righteousness and my completely off-base assumptions on how the world worked, the best thing about me is that I loved to listen and learn. And it's only through the grace of other human beings who would let me sit down with them and believe what they were telling me instead of, oh no, that's not how the world works, and shutting them out. It was through that grace of someone sitting with me and through me having the open heart to listen and believe. Through that's the only way I was able to grow. Sitting down with others, listening with an open heart, being challenged with love when I was wrong, and moving forward to a better of understanding in that love together at that same table. Thank you.
I have plenty to say about inclusivity, and much of it shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody who's come to this church for a little while. Much of it is what I've been saying every time I'm up here speaking. And the one thing about being up here and speaking is that I appreciate all the feedback I get from folks. It's usually very positive, but not always. Surprise, surprise. At times, people think I talk about racial or social justice too much. They want a more spiritual reflection. To me, personally, my social justice, my social outlook is part of my spiritual outlook. It's one and the same. I can't separate it. But I do understand how other people feel. And because of tying all of that into the values, our church's values, I hope I can give you some of that spirituality that you are sometimes missing today. And especially through the values of pluralism, justice, and equity. It's been a difficult 3 weeks. I don't know about anybody else. How many of us have given up on watching or reading the news? Social media, parted ways with relatives, friends, neighbors that voted differently than we did. How many of us have said we just can't take it anymore? We're tired of fighting. How many of us feel that we're in the midst of a civil war, fighting for the preservation of our democracy in our country? How many of us, until recently, would have said or thought things like, we've made a lot of progress in civil rights. Systemic racism isn't an issue like it used to be. LGBTQIA plus people have it relatively easy. After all, they can get married. How many of us use the term illegal immigrant? And then how many of us have good friends that are of a different race than we are, a different sexual orientation, a different age group, economic class, or able-bodiedness than us? How diversified are your friendships, your relationships? My guess is that for many of us here this morning, we do better in some of these areas than in others. That would be normal. We only know what we know. I want you to hold that thought for a minute as I switch gears. As a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association, we adopted 6 values about a year ago. Justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, and generosity. Those are 6 values that we covenant as a congregation with all the other congregations that make up the association. We also have the principles that we can use in our spiritual growth. And like I said, I want to focus on 3 of those. Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. In justice, we work to be a diverse, multicultural, beloved communities where all thrive. And to do that, we covenant to dismantle racism and all forms of systemic oppression. We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large. And equity. We declare that every person has the right to flourish with dignity, with inherent dignity and worthiness. And to do so, we covenant to use our time, our wisdom, our attention, and our money to build and sustain fully accessible and inclusive communities. Of the news I've watched the last 3 weeks, I don't see much of that being broadcast. In theory, All of this makes sense to me. It's a nice framework that I believe in. And I want it to be the way I live my life. And then I open my eyes and I look around and I wonder, what world am I living in? I really can't comprehend all that is happening around me. I go from feeling hopeless to angry to blaming to wanting to crawl up and curl into a fetal position. You name a negative emotion, and I probably felt it pretty recently. I really limit my exposure to news, but I allow myself 2 resources. I read the Huffington Post. It's got a liberal bias that I want to hear because I can't take the straight news. And I watch NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt. Anybody that broadcasts the news and can play the saxophone has got to be pretty good. Mentally, it's all I can handle. You know, it's terrifying to wonder about the future of our country. Just yesterday, the person that lives in the White House posted, "He who saves his country does not violate any law," on social media. We can chuckle at the craziness of changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico, but can we chuckle at the Associated Press banishment from press corps and the assault on freedom of speech? The illegal firing of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of government employees. The deportation of who knows how many immigrants to our country. So what do we do as individuals, as a church, and as a community? I'm not entirely sure, but I'll tell you what I plan to do. I'm going to hold myself to the values of our faith because I believe in them. Again, living our values is not an easy thing to do. It means I have to put my ego aside, my judgment aside, my anger aside, my hurt aside. I have to embrace people that I may not like, and they may not like me. I know that many in this sanctuary are hurting. People here today have relatives that they fear could be taken from their families and deported. We have friends, family members, or members of the congregation that are transgender or non-binary. BIPOC individuals are once again seeing an assault on themselves as the government breaks promises one more time. We have a planet that is about to be freshly attacked because regulations are going to be dropped. And we won't know the extent of the damage or the repairs needed for years to come. So what can we do? What am I going to do? I'm going to do my best to remain engaged and in control of those things that are within my control. I attend 12-step programs. I pray for the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and there's a lot of them I can't change. But the wisdom to know the things that I can. So I'm going to avoid shutting myself down. I just can't afford to put my head in the sand. I can read, and then read some more, and then read some more, because I have to understand the issues in order to create the needed change. I'm going to work in a little announcement here that got missed out. I can attend next week's walking tour that's put on by Josette. It's a Black History tour. It'll be after the service on Sunday. It's been featured in the New York Times. It's a local way for us to know what happened in our community. Why are race relations in our community the way they are? I can use my privilege to help those who don't have access to what I have access to. The soccer moms in Portland did this during the political unrest after George Floyd was murdered. Each night, they wore yellow shirts, and they'd go downtown, and they'd have bike helmets on, and they would stand and create a line between the National Guard and the BIPOC demonstrators that were protesting. They put themselves at risk of harm because they knew the optics of white mothers getting assaulted weren't good. And they knew that putting themselves out there would protect those people of color from getting assaulted. I can demonstrate. And if I can't demonstrate in person, then I can help those who can. That may mean financial contributions. It may mean watching children while a parent goes out to a rally. It may mean paying bail for those that get arrested. I can write or call my government representatives repeatedly and express how I want them to vote on legislation. And I can do that even though I know there's not a damn thing I say that's going to change their mind. But they still need to know how I feel. And the more of us that call or write letters means that their staff will be busy answering the phone calls, and that takes them away from doing the jobs of working on legislation that I don't support. The final thought of what I can do, and what you all can do, is to allow the circle to widen. You know, what does that mean? Often we look around the circle and we look to see who's here sitting in the sanctuary. What voices are represented? I think one thing to do, though, that's maybe more important is who's not here, who's not in the circle, and why aren't they? I'm part of a weekly caregivers call, support call for a group of us. Jane Fanning is on those calls. She's a longtime member of UU St. Pete. Her husband, Kent, led the discussion group on Sunday mornings for 35 years. They raised their kids in this church. But they don't come anymore because Kent's got Parkinson's and his health doesn't allow them to come. But they are online watching, and so hello, Jane. Hello, Kent. I'm glad you're here. They are part of this circle even though we don't see them. I also found out that Jane is part of a Zoom call with 6 women that used to be here at UU St. Pete. They needed somebody to set up the Zoom call because the person that did it before wasn't able to anymore. And so because of that, every 2 weeks, Jane Fanning, Catherine Gannon, Gloria Marvin, Charlene Ropalewski, Betsy Filtz, Cheryl McNeil are all able to connect with each other and continue those relationships that they started here in this church. They've all had to return to different areas of the country to be closer to family as they age. They are part of this circle. You know, but there's other people that are going to be part of this circle. At some point in all of this, I do have faith that many people that voted differently than I did in this election are going to become disillusioned with what's happening. Or the people that were already so disillusioned to begin with that they didn't vote at all will want to create some positive change. And I need to be open to their joining the circle. I may need to simply shut up and let them talk and listen, and I mean truly listen, to what their fears are, what their beliefs are. Why were they able to vote for somebody that I find so vile, that they believed in so much? I need to understand that, because they are part of this world, they are part of this circle. And at some point, we've got to get along. You know, we have a lot more in common with our enemies than we think we do. Most people, if you ask them what they want in life, they want to be happy. They want to be able to provide for their families. They want to be able to raise children, grandchildren, feed themselves, take care of themselves, have health insurance. All the same things that we want. They want to feel good about themselves. Now, it would be very easy for me, when this is going to start to happen, to look at people and say, what did you ever think was going to happen? Like, why should I accept you? You got what you deserved. It doesn't work that way. Because we all get that. We're all getting what's happening now. And we're all going to have to deal with it if we're going to come around and be a better country. In our covenant group a couple weeks ago, we were talking about what was going on. And somebody said, you know, maybe this is what we have to go through in order to finally get it. We have to go through this in order to finally be able to see that as a country, we need to work together and work with each other and for each other and create that change that will be good. A week ago, I wasn't having that hope. I wasn't having that faith. I do today. It's not going to be easy. I'm still scared. But I know love is a lot stronger than hate, and love always seems to win. And I'm going to hold on to that. And if anybody tries to take it away from me, they're not going to. I'm counting on all of you to be there with me, to help me, to support me when I'm maybe on the day I'm not feeling so strong. We can get there. And we can come out stronger on the other side if we just keep trying. And so I ask you, please try with me. Thank you.
We eat fruit from trees that were planted long before we were born. We eat fruit from trees that were planted long before we were born. Now is the time for the offering to be given and received.
What's given in love is received with great joy. Now please rise as you are willing and able for our closing hymn, Let This Be a House of Peace. It's number 1054 in the Teal hymnal.
Let this be a house of peace, of nature and humanity, of sorrow and elation. Let this be our house, a haven for the healing, an open room for question and inspiration. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of freedom, guardian of dignity and worth held deep within. Let this be our house, a platform for the free voice, where all our sacred difference here shall not divide us. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let all in this house seek truth, where scientists and mystics abide in reverence here. Let this be our house, a house of our creation, where works of art and melodies consecrate the atmosphere. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of prophecy. May vision for our children be our common theme. Let this be our house of myth and lore and legend, our trove of ancient story and cradle of our instant dreams. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace. Let this be a house of peace.
You may be seated. Our closing words are from Jan Robison. Being excluded kills. It kills the spirit, and sometimes it kills the body. So here's my thought. If you, like me, your attachment, rich or middle class, if you're included in most or many circles, if you belong in almost any place you find yourself, we have the opportunity and responsibility to include the unincluded. Look for someone who appears not to belong today and choose them. Now please remain seating as Tim plays our postlude.
Before we release our flame, I want to take just a minute to send some positive energy. During the hymn, probably people's phones and watches were all buzzing with an Amber Alert. So just hold in your minds and thoughts that the child that has been taken is returned safely and quickly, and keep them in your thoughts. So we invite you to follow along with the hand gestures: light of truth, warmth of love, fire of courage, as Laura asked you, extinguishes our chalice. The words to UUSP's traditional chalice extinguishing are in your order of service and online in the text chat. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of love, or the fire of courage. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world. Our worship is over, but our service begins. Please join us for coffee hour in Gilmore. And if you see someone not talking to anyone, maybe go up and say hello. We hope this time together will help you through your week and will help you remember that you are not alone. Thank you for coming today. Thank you.